This is episode 9 of the Remix Your World podcast with Joi Cardwell. Welcome to Remix Your World. I'm Allison Kalagna, global DJ and music producer turned life remixer and personal growth coach. In each episode, we bring you real talk, inspiring stories, and heartfelt conversations of personal transformation to help you uplift and amplify your life. This is the Remix Your World podcast. What's up, y'all? It's episode 9 of the Remix Your World podcast. I'm Allison Kalagna, and today on the show, I'm talking to singer and songwriter Joi Cardwell. Chances are you have heard her beautiful voice on the dance floor, whether she is singing something deep and soulful or big room and uplifting, her voice translates gracefully. Today, we got down to the business of success in the music industry, meditation, and the transition she's in now with opening a wellness center in West Palm Beach, Florida. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Joi Cardwell. So if you are considering joining CIJ, these will be the last 2 classes that I will be offering for the rest of the year. You need to jump in quick. You will hear me talk a lot about CIJ in this podcast and what a difference it's made for me in my life and what a difference it's made for some of my students. So if you're in a place right now where you're figuring you want to just upgrade, up-level, remix, and rework, then I highly encourage you and invite you to join me on a powerful 8-week journey through self-discovery. You can find out all the information about CIJ at remixyourworld.com/CIJ. If you want me to text you, text the words Summer CIJ to 44222. That's Summer CIJ, all one word, to 44222, and I'll text you all the information. I hope to see you in class. Come on. Oh yeah! Just a heads up, if you are new to meditating and you have no idea where to start and you're looking for a little guidance, I've got something for you. I produced something called the Mindful Mixtape, and I'll send it to you. It's 5 guided meditations led by me, all put to music. If you are interested in downloading this, text the words meditate now to 44222, and I'll send that to you now. Or you can find it at remixyourworld.com.
Yo, check this out.
Legend Joi Cardwell. Billboard names Joi Cardwell as one of the top 100, number 43, greatest dance club artists of all time from 1976 to 2016, joining the ranks of Madonna, Donna Summer, Diana Ross, George Michael, and Grace Jones, to name a few. What defines a legend? It is longevity, an ability to create a unique place in the world, a recognizable brand, creativity, beauty, and long-lasting memories. Well, if those attributes are what a legend is, then Joi Cardwell certainly fits the bill. With a career that is rooted in Black music history, storied venues, spectacular pairings, and momentous events, Joi Cardwell stands alone as a vocalist, songwriter, producer, gay icon, and maverick who has always walked a path all her own. Miss Cardwell's professional career started at amateur night at the Apollo, where as a college freshman, she won 5 times. From there, she claimed her spot in the pop R&B producer Kashif's Whitney Houston girl band, The Promise, at a cattle call audition, and sang her way into the Arista recording contract after one song at the piano by music industry icon Clive Davis. Her chops were honored by background work for Jermaine Jackson, Johnny Kemp, Phyllis Hyman, the Pointer Sisters, LL Cool J, Paula Abdul, and Kashif himself. Soon after leaving Arista, another fateful audition with Sony recording artist Lil Louis led to the classic album Journey with the Lonely, which spawned the #1 records Club Lonely and Saved My Life, along with the flawless Do You Love Me and Dancing in My Sleep, securing Joi's place on the dance floor for the next 20 years. As a solo artist, Joi was the center of the New York indie house label 8-Ball Records, where she created 2 albums, The World is Full of Trouble and Joi Cardwell, each of whom produced 4 singles, an additional 2 number 1s, and 6 top 10s. Trouble, Jump for Joy, You've Gotta Pray, Run to You, Found Love, Love and Devotion, Soul to Bear, and Power showed the world that Joi could play with the big boys and make them shake it in her very own groove. With the demise of 8-Ball, Joi took control of her publishing and master catalog and released the new soul gems Deliverance and the Plain Jane Project to let the world know that she had more than one trick up her sleeve. In the same vein, she hooked up with Tawate to create Love Connection and guest starred with the Brooklyn Funk Essentials on The Creator Has a Master Plan, performing at the world's finest jazz festivals including Montreux, North Sea, and Nice Jazz Festivals. Writing The Worlds of Dance and Soul, Joi manifested more hits. What It Feels Like, How Deep Is Your Love, Only You, What's Freedom, Change the World, and an IDMA winner for the best house and garage record, Love Somebody Else. As a brand, Joi has successfully aligned herself with powerhouse companies: Reebok, Starbucks, Sony Pictures, Nestle's Power Bar, AEI DMX, NEC Computers, New York & Company, Target and Stars on Ice, Audi, Levi's, and many others. Her music has been featured in Fashion Week shows, Queer as Folk, international commercials, film and television, and has been recorded by other artists internationally such as Tawate and Toshi Kubota in Japan. To check idol Martika. Awards, she's got them. 2013 IDMA winner, Best House and Garage Track, multiple ASCAP Rhythm and Soul Awards, 2 GLAMA Best Dance Artist Awards, Gold Records, 20-plus Billboard chart toppers, and several million streamed Spotify releases. Premier labels have licensed Miss Cardwell's songs worldwide, including RCA Jazz, EMI Japan, Elektra, Sony BMG, Nervous, Slip and Slide, Warner Music, Ultra Music, Defected, Tommy Boy, Head Candy, AVEX, and Legendary West End, among others. Experience the legendary Miss Cardwell live or discover her online. She is the only Joi Cardwell in the world. Miss Joi Cardwell, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Allison?
Amazing, and I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
You're the first singer. Well, Ash, you're the first female singer.
Okay.
I've had. So I've been following you for quite some time, and I love your positivity. I love your energy. And I love, when you stick it to the people for sampling.
Well, yeah. I gotta protect my assets.
Yes, assets. Yeah. So I wanted to have you on to kind of have a conversation.
Okay.
So when did you know your gift was music?
Oh, I'd have to say that was really early on, about 5 or 6. My parents were audiophiles, and I'm an only child, so they used to stick me in my room with my own stereo because they didn't want me to touch theirs. And at that point, I used to get their cast-offs from the Columbia Record Club, and those were the records I could play, and I would make up my own little shows and songs to any instrumental that came along. I said, I pretty much set myself up as a songwriter to do exactly what happens now. Or, people send me tracks, I write songs to them. I was like, I've been in training since I'm 6 years old. So yeah, that was about it.
And did you know, was there a difference between music and voice to you? Like, did you know that particularly voice was your thing, or first it was just like, oh, music is it? And then, when did you realize, wow, I have this voice?
I don't think I knew I had a voice. I just liked using it, and making up my own songs and singing along. I have a tape actually of myself, which is stuck in my tape player, and I'm trying to figure out how to get it out. But I don't think I was that great a singer when I was little, but I just really loved doing it. And then as I got a little bit older, my aunt, who was a professional backup singer, And my mother used to sit around drinking martinis on Saturdays and make them harmonize with them. So I think they kind of figured it out and then just kind of worked with me doing it for both their own entertainment and I guess, some training at the same time. You just never know.
Yeah. And I was reading your bio, and the Carnegie Hall thing is pretty amazing. Do you want to share something?
Yeah. I mean, my mother had me in dance class basically since I was born, it seems like. And it just happened to be that every time I did a project, I would be selected to be either, showcased, or I would get a solo, or I would do whatever. And it was a little vignette as part of this recital, The Three Blind Mice, and I had been chosen to be one of the three blind mice. And my debut was at Carnegie Hall. And it just kind of went from, I did Carnegie Hall by happenstance. Next thing you know, I'm 12 singing Minnie Riperton, Loving You at the Beacon Theater. Then I'm at, 18 years old doing the amateur night at the Apollo and winning that several times. Then the next thing I know, I'm at Lincoln Center. So I couldn't even tell you what, other than, I say blessed and highly favored. Shit just happens for me, and I think a lot of it has to do with opportunity meeting me with being ready and just not really being a fearful person. My mother was very, very instrumental in pushing me out into the world and making me not fear people or circumstances or trying things or, not doing, I won't call them failures, just not really, getting with something and letting it go without fear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's amazing that you had such support at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
You then decided, well, this is it. This is what I'm going to do for a career. Because you ended up going to school for it. Like, this was it. You knew it.
No, actually, I was convinced by I went to NYU. And I was in a humanities program. I was studying, literature and philosophy, which is my thing. And I guess I wanted to be a singer. I don't really know. I was just going to school because that's what I was supposed to do. And honestly, on my mind as a profession, I was going to go to law school.
Wow.
And freshman year, the Apollo had just opened again. It was in the 80s. And they had been closed for a while and they'd just been renovated. And my friends were like, you got to go do that. And I was like, yeah, okay. So a bunch of us got on the train and took the A train uptown and I auditioned and I won. And I never won first place though. I always came in, second or third. But then I won like 5 times. Like I kept winning. And then they offered me a contract for a year, a management contract, which was a little bit dodgy. But which I never ended up signing, which is a whole nother story. But I figured, well, I got 3 more years of school to go. So what's a 1-year contract where I'm not going anywhere anyway? So no harm, no foul. And so that kind of was the beginning of my professional career, semi-professional, professional career. And things just kept happening. And I was like, well, maybe I can, keep pursuing this. And my mother, the banker, was like, I don't care what you do, but you better get your degree. And I was like, okay. So I just kept rolling with it. And, by my senior year, I had a contract on Arista Records.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was that like? You got that call. Tell us about that.
It was a weird situation. So, I had been looking now at this point, probably actively looking at Backstage, which is the trade paper. And I had seen an article that said that Kashif, who was, a pretty famous producer at the time, most notably for being Whitney Houston's producer, was looking for dancers who could sing. And I'm like, that's bullshit. He wants singers who can dance, but I guess he wanted to make sure that they could move. So I go to this audition and it's all these dancers, stretching and doing their thing. And I walk in and I sing Somebody Else's Guy. Ooh. So I was like, I'm going for this. So by the time I walked out, everyone just looked at me. You could see like the cattle call lined up. And by the time I got home, I had been chosen to be in this girl group that he was putting together. So my instincts were right about that. And we spent the next several months, which is over the summer, picking other girls to be in the group, one of whom ended up being Terry from En Vogue, who subsequently left the group because she was going back to Prairie View, Texas to finish her college education, and ended up being in En Vogue and not in my group. And then, that's that story. So by December, we had put together enough records to, as a demo to go and present it to Clive Davis. So I had been chosen at that point because I was killing every time we'd audition for a song, I was like, oh, this is mine. So I was chosen as the lead singer. And so basically one Friday night, office is closed at Arista, which used to be on 57th Street. And basically Kashif sat at a piano. I sang, Clive Davis listened. And before I left the office, we had a deal.
Wow.
Just like that.
That is amazing.
But that's, again, like I said, the stuff that's happened to me is kind of like, well, I'm always prepared.
Yeah.
I work hard. Like if I know that I have a chance or I'm going to compete with someone, I'm at least coming in with my A game. If I don't get it, then I'm okay with it. But it hasn't really happened to me yet in that regard. When I really want something, I really just kind of focus on it, almost like a crazy person. But I put all of my energy into that, and the circumstances usually kind of line themselves up for me to present, so that's how that happened.
Yeah. And it reminds me of, like in a sense, it's like you're a form of manifestation, you manifesting that for yourself, like,
yeah,
believe in yourself enough and that good things are coming. So you walk that. And then of course, good things come, it's like that.
Yeah. It's much easier when you're not conscious of it. Once I started to get hold of the concept of manifestation, it doesn't work as well as when it's more organic. And that was one of the things in my studies, about manifestation and, this whole stuff that's happening these days with people trying to tap into that sacred wisdom, is that I never really thought about it that hard. I just was like, well, this is what I want to do. And I went for it, as opposed to, this new thing. It's like, you have to make your lists and do all this other stuff. And I'm like, that shit just never works out for me that way. Then when I just do the work and just show up, it seems to be a far more natural and far more authentic than, when I'm actually kind of prepping in this weird way, making these lists, which I guess even the universe realizes this is bullshit. This is not really what you want, or you're trying to define it so it's so, you're trying to put the parameters around it so tightly that you end up creating a noose around your own neck. Whereas if you just say, well, I want to sing.
Right.
And sing, then the singing leads to whatever it is, or, whatever it is, I want to ace this test. Well, let me just read the book.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like consciously being prepared, knowing what you want and being prepared for the result.
Yeah, I think it works out a lot better, than being super programmed into thinking that there is a formula. There is, but it's outside of our realm of understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always looked at it as like, I know what I want. I can see the bigger vision, and it's more or less how that shows up. Fine.
Right.
Open to the thousands of ways that can show up. I just see what I'm working towards, kind of thing. And I stay focused on what feels good and is it alive in my heart,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really that, and it's sometimes the opportunities presented to you are totally outside of what you envisioned for yourself or what you even thought you wanted until someone says to you, hey, well, what about this? And you go, oh, wow. Yeah. What about that? I never thought about that. Ooh, and it gives you this really cool new direction that, you never thought, a path you'd never even think you'd be on.
Yeah, that's what I refer to as the life remix. Totally. It's like, oh, shit's being remixed.
Turn left now. You're like, okay.
So what do you think, of course, you've been extremely successful and it doesn't always come easy.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think one of your biggest obstacles have been?
In my career or in life or just whatever?
first, and then if you want to share life, sure.
I think in my career, my biggest obstacle has been not really sticking to what people expect me to do. I think, it's like I've been successful, I think, because of it, but I think I could have maybe been more successful if I just was, the soulful house Joi and not the circuit Joi, or not the kind of progressive alternative Joi, or, whatever. Because people don't feel comfortable with things outside of the label of what they perceive you to be for them. So I think that, I could have been maybe a little bit more responsive to other people's needs in that way. But then I felt that if that were the case, I would have stayed on a major label and just let them dictate to me, what they wanted to do. And my concern was more about expressing myself. Mm-hmm. So, subsequently, and being totally forthright with my sexuality, whatever it was, whenever it was, might have been a little bit, of an obstacle for some people. The world is what it is, and people like to make their own judgments, even though they have absolutely no idea what your life's about. Other than that, I think really not being a nightlife person might have had a little contribution to it as well, because I've never been, and I'm not one of those people that's out in a nightclub, several times a week. First of all, as a singer, it's just not healthy. It's not a healthy environment for a singer to be in, because late nights, alcohol, smoke, and lack of sleep is not good for your body, period. But if you're trying to get up there and really do something live and well, and, nightclubs are not the most conducive forum for live performances as much as we love them. They just are not set up for that. You have to be really in good shape, So, and the older I get, the less tolerance I have for, I'm like, God, you're still in the club? It's like, you're going to the bar and going to a bar you haven't been to in 10 years. And every time you pop in, every once a year or whatever, the same people are there. You're like, this can't be chance. You're here, you're always here. Get a life, So I think that would be that. And I say as far as, and this might relate to my career, but I think some of my love choices have been questionable. Because a lot of, I would say the majority of the time, the people that I was involved with always wanted to take me away from my career.
Okay.
They were super jealous or, whatever. And I'd be like, really? It's like, it's not what you think it is. Mm-hmm. Or traveling or, just all of the things that encompass the life of being in show business were not really that conducive. And I didn't pick people based upon, a full understanding of that. And I say some of that has to just deal with youth and passion and, making choices based on, I guess, things that people do when they're younger. So, it's like, it is what it is. But I mean, that's the truth. So.
Yeah. So I remember, I think my first Joi Cardwell moment, I think goes back to deep soulful, Blaze. I think that was around that time. And then the circuit stuff started to happen with Jump for Joy, Soul to Bear, and, those remixes.
Right.
And I think, if I can remember correctly, you performed at the club that I played at in New Orleans at 735. Didn't you come one year? Because I feel like you did around Jump for Joy.
I did. I don't know. Was it Oz or I've been there?
735, or so, it was definitely.
I definitely performed in New Orleans, and it was during Pride. I definitely remember that. And yeah, Jump for Joy, which is a crazy record, which. It's like people would love it, and there's all these incarnations of it. People keep remixing it every couple of years and throwing out new versions, and I'm like, I don't even know why this song's so popular. It's kind of a weird, quirky, out there, kind of thing that I just wrote so people would remember my name.
It's amazing. That was going to be one of my questions of was there any song that you just were and that one hit?
I have so many like that. Like, I really have no gauge on like, I don't really know. I think what I've found over time is that a lot of times the songs are reflective of things that are in my subconscious a lot of times, unless specifically I'm doing something for it, like, well, nobody knows my name, and, Little Lewis just put me out there as Joy, so why don't I have everyone jump for Joy? And then it's a double entendre because it is kind of representative of me. It's like, why not be happy and joyous and have a great life, and, don't have much cares about what people think or whatever, just come along and let's jump for joy. But, like, it really was a lot harder than I thought the record would be. The mixes came out so hard, and they really put a stamp on, putting me in front of the circuit crowd. And that was a big deal for a while. And then, of course, that fell off, vocals just kind of fell out, and it just became one big drum fest, for that. But it was fun, and to me, it was, an audience is no different. One is no different from the other. It's just the people, might classify themselves as a certain way. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're into it and we're having a good time, that's all I need.
And in terms of you, what has been your favorite, like one of your personal favorite songs you've ever written?
I think, to tell you, one of my favorite songs is Shine, wasn't even a single. I did it with Rasmus Faber, and we had met in Tokyo, like we were doing something together, and we were just hanging out with a mutual friend, and he says, I'm doing something for this label, you two, why don't we do something together? And the reason why I liked Shine, and the reason why I like it, is that it's kind of got a classic, it's just its own song. It wasn't made for any reason. And I think lyrically, it speaks to that inner person that we all have that we don't necessarily show to other people because we're afraid. And, the message is just, shine, let it out, and, the lyrics is, I was hiding within myself looking for someone. Of course, I don't remember the lyrics, but it's like, I'm somehow thinking that if I could, you wouldn't know the best of me. It's like, so I've been wondering if you've been having those same types of thoughts. And that's really what it is. It's kind of like a person to person, like, we all are insecure. We all have these things that we think about, but at the end of it, just kind of come out. So I think that's one of my favorite songs. And of course, they change, depending on my mood, depending on, I just went back to put together a retrospective of my career, which is about 3 hours long. And I had to sit and listen to mixes that I've never heard before. Like, they've been around, for 20 years, some of these songs. And I'm like, I really like this. And I had never heard it. Or maybe I heard it once when the record came out, and I just, threw it into the archive bin. And, like, there is a Tief Shots mix of Soul to Bear that I'm really digging, like, right now, that I've never heard before. There's What's Freedom. There's a mix of that I really liked. That was the Groove Junkies, but it was remixed by someone. I don't even know. But I'm like, it's just like, wow, these are cool songs that were done in really nice ways. And, who knew? So it's like going back and listening to stuff and really, I had to listen kind of carefully, but I kind of tried to do the things that I knew were popular enough, but I didn't want to just repackage a bunch of old songs and just be like, hey, here it is. I wanted to listen to it and see what moved me now and see if it was still, these songs were still relevant. And some of them are old but sound new. Some of them are new but sound old. It's kind of a weird thing, but I just wanted to put out stuff that I felt would still be relatable, So I guess that's,
like, a lot of the deeper stuff is always relatable, right? It's something magic about, like, a deeper soulful house thing or something that's just not so big. It's constant. Like, I can imagine, I'm going to go back. I want to listen to I will never be able to say his name right. For sure.
Tief Shots. Tief Shots.
Yeah. I will never be able to say that right. But, like, I would imagine that it's very classic and timeless from past stuff of his,
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is that the soul, what has always been soul music, which is whether it's Celtic or, American or jazz or, Japanese or whatever it is that the instrumentation and the vibration of musical instruments, whether they're electronic or not, but being used in a way that has a flow, a melody, and movement, is something on a vibrational level that hits you. So I think that that's why, the classic stuff hits you in a different way, even though it might sound, it's dated. And the dated part about it is it just belongs to a period in time. But it still feels good because of the vibrational level of what's happening in the synergy that's, happening between the instruments, and then when you add vocals to that, and I'm always a very melodic writer, with the right combination just becomes magical.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes things hit you, like the harder stuff, sometimes the repetition can be good if it sits in the right spot. But if it doesn't, then it becomes grating. It becomes annoying. It becomes hard. It becomes hard to listen to unless, of course, you're chemically altered or tweaked to a certain frequency that, you can't reach alone. Let's just put it like that. And, and that's keeping it real. Sometimes you just can't be on that frequency if you're just not there.
Yeah. Agreed. And when you're writing a song, does melody come to you first or sometimes words, or does it both?
I would say melody always comes first. Melody sometimes comes with sounds, like, like wah, wah, me, wah, wah, wah. And then it's like that sound generates a word, which in turn might lead to other words following melodically. And then, I'll sing them usually into my phone because I always have my phone nearby. And usually what happens is that kind of morphs into a sentence, and then that becomes a theme. And then the theme just kind of writes itself after I lock into some sort of melody. It's the repetition, the words almost kind of just flow out of my head the first time. And then that's when the story starts to be crafted around that.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I'm playing keys, it's the same way for me. It's like I hear it as words, but without words. And So I have yet to. Lyrics are tough for me. That's definitely a comfort zone that needs to be pushed for me to write lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just write the music.
Well, that's why every player in the band has their own instrument.
Exactly. Give me the.
I will never be the drummer. Let me just tell you that now. For someone who can sing to, a 16th note or a 32nd, I can't keep pace using the body at all. I'm just totally spastic when it comes to that.
Dancer too. That's awesome. That's so, you would think. Isn't that amazing?
You'd think it all connected, but there's just there's a short going on there for sure.
So you've had, I think over at least 1 million plays on Spotify.
Yeah, currently I think I'm at about 4 million.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have right now, according to my data, I have about 100,000 plays a month right now.
That is amazing.
I don't even know how that happened. I'm like, how did me at 50 years old, end up starting to tap into, well, I mean, I do know how it happened, but it's still, again, serendipitous. Macioplex.
I was just about to say, I love me some Macioplex, and that mix.
Macioplex kind of became my bridge to the younger generation. And that opened up the door for kids as young as 13, apparently, and as old as 60. I have this wide range of listeners, and I know for a fact that was one way that I was able to bridge that. The other way was, my association with the Brooklyn Funk Essentials. Mm-hmm. The Creator Has a Master Plan was a record we did about 22 years ago. That was a huge hit worldwide, especially in Latin America and France and, England, with that whole acid jazz kind of movement that was happening, that giant step kind of world, And a couple of years ago, I guess it was 2015, we did an anniversary album. And I wrote a couple songs on that which also Dance or Die was one of the songs on that album. And the fans from before, plus again, these kids that are into new funk and stuff like that, once again, it kind of, so those were my two bridges. And then I've noticed that has led to other people discovering me because I don't market myself at all. I might throw out on Facebook, like, I'll put out my healing, helpful, yogi stuff because I'm more comfortable with that. And, like I have a new compilation coming out called Pride and Joy. One of the palm fronds just fell off my tree. It always makes this really loud noise. But anyway, so between the Brooklyn Funky Centrals and Maceo Plex, and of course, a couple Pride compilations here and there, and it's like and Be Yourself. The Blaze record had a new rework this year as well. It bridges all of these worlds that seemed so disparate before, but now have kind of, people can flow from one thing to another. And all of those chances I took with making albums that were not dance records, now people are going back and listening to that because they're not prejudiced.
Right.
By, what they went to the clubs when they were 12, to hear, or, those memories are different. So they're creating new vibes where it's like, okay, well, I can go from lounge to late night to after hours. And you don't have to turn me off. I can take you there the whole time, unless you get sick of my voice, which, can happen. But, it's kind of like that vibe. So, yeah, so I've been really, really fortunate, again, to have people who appreciate, me holding true to myself and have actively participated in bringing forth, and respecting that and allowing it to be new. And I'm not one, I know like some artists, like I wrote the song this way, and they don't want to adulterate it. And I'm like, well, I wrote it to be heard. And if no one's listening to this version, and I didn't write the music anyway, so I'm not really that, married to, one mix. I mean, every song I've ever done has been mixed at least 5 times. So why would I be opposed to, a new version of the same song? That's silly. And especially when we're in waves of technology catching up with the economics of being, an artist. Why would I say, well, I don't want any new revenue? That's just crazy.
Not business.
Yeah, it's bad business. It just is. And, I giggle a lot about it. I just laugh and I'm like, okay, let's see what happens next. Maybe I can buy some more bolsters with that, whatever.
So talk to us about that, though, the yoga. So when did you start practicing?
Well, I would say that my mental practice, I've been doing meditation for, I would say, at least 20 years. I've been meditating. So that part of my practice has been going on that long. And I would kind of float in and out of yoga, the physical asana practice, when convenient. But I had a real problem with a lot of the places I was going to because I had lived in Asia and I have traveled a lot. And this whole cultural appropriation thing that's been going on. I mean, you can see it, to a certain extent. So I kind of dropped out because I felt like yoga had gotten way too Lululemon and just, it had become Zumba. And I was like, this is bullshit. I don't want to be part of this. I don't mind doing the practice, but, you have teachers like barking at you, like your boot camp, not really respecting people's bodies or respecting the whole point of why people come to yoga or why most people think they're coming to yoga. And so I decided, again, through one of those back channel round the corner ways, that I would study it because I was offered an opportunity to buy a property here in West Palm Beach. And I was thinking originally, well, I'm just going to build a studio and do something like paint, calligraphy, or I don't know, take pictures and have upstairs and have a roof garden and all this other stuff. And they're like, yeah, but that building, if you buy that, it's going to cost you like $500,000 to renovate because it's not really concrete, it's really wood, and you don't know what's going on because it's a historic neighborhood. And I was like, no, I don't think I want to do that. So again, I was presented with, well, what would you do with this over here? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I was like, this looks like a really good place to put a wellness center. Ding, 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 ding. So the next thing I know, I start, thinking about it. They're like, well, put together a business plan. And I'm like, whoa, okay.
What's that?
I'm like, I know how to do that. But I was like, well, I don't really have I don't even know what I'm doing. I haven't even thought this was just something I threw out at you. And they're like, well, if you do this, then perhaps the city can work with you and blah, blah, and get funding. And I was like, well, I think I can come up with something. So 1 week and a day later, I'd submitted a business plan, including a juice bar. And, then I really started going with it. I'm like, I'm going to have a juice bar, and inside I'm going to renovate it. It's going to be an open space with this kind of like farm wall, and, that we can slide back. Barn, not farm, this barn wall, so I can slide it back so we can have a little shop up front, and then we can make the room flexible, and it had a big yard so I could do 90% of my teaching outside, because I felt it was really important to get people outside.
Yeah.
And it just kind of grew. And the next thing I know, I put up like a GoFundMe for people to help me get my training done. And the next thing I know, I'm spending my 50th birthday happened. And the next week I was on a plane to Mexico for 3 weeks, living in a tent, studying yoga for 14 hours a day. So then I come back and, while the process is still going on, it's been a year. And because it is the city, I have to deal with working. My project was so successful in concept that it helped to sell the rest of the block. So there's a whole thing going on that's, they're going to have all these my building will be the only authentic historic building, surrounded by replicas, keeping, that intact. With other businesses that will be supportive and ancillary to what I'm doing. And then I was like, okay, so while I'm waiting, don't stress, you get all stressed. Oh, so it's going to happen by September. It's not going to happen now. It's been a year. And so I went and took a meditation certification. So I spent 4 months studying how to teach, the shamatha practice, which is the Buddhist practice, without the religion, to anyone. So I'm certified in that now. So again, it's like the wheels just rolling along, and I'm just catching all the lint, as I roll down the side of the thing. And people have been really supportive here in Palm Beach. And, I've been teaching children now, kind of as an experiment, but also to kind of fine tune my skills. I just finished a 3-month course with them in meditation, and it has really given me some positive results. So now I'm kind of writing grants and trying to get, hopefully very soon, a summer program together so I can teach children 6 to 12 how to meditate, and hopefully let that translate into their lives in school, and, coping with the stresses of today's life, and, adding the adult programs also as I do that.
That is so amazing. I love that.
Crazy.
I mean, that's saying yes to life. It's like I talk about a big life remix. That's just, wow, this is where I'm at. I'm saying yes, like knowing you're following it. That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't, it was like, I knew I wasn't going to be doing much more music. And that's why I'm official. Like, people say, well, you're never going to record again. And I'm like, no, but I had to declare myself retired from that as my main profession in order for me to place not only energetically, the fact that I can't keep one foot there and try to step over here without ending up in a split, and it's like, yeah, I'm sure at some point I'll have an idea and I'll come up with some new music, but I really wanted to cognitively, consciously, and purposely put my efforts into this primarily so I could get it done, at least set it up and get the infrastructure done and get people involved and be use my media savvy and my marketing skills and all of those things that I learned in show business to get people on board. Then I can always partner up with other people. And if I decide to go on a tour, well, I can do that. There's nothing that says I can't, but I couldn't ride fully in both worlds. You can't do it.
Yeah.
You just can't.
it's challenging. I remember for me, even because I've really stopped taking a lot of gigs, and it's just a slow transition that's happening for me. And I'm doing other things musically, that's outside of being in the club, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And I remember for the first 2 years while I was in school, coaching school and such, it was very hard. I was split. Like on the weekends, I'm sitting here going, playing, and during the week I'm studying, and it was very hard. And now, as they're starting to shift, as one, foot is out of the clubs more, mm-hmm. I feel like there's so much more movement with Remix Your World because of what you're saying. It's like, allowing the space for it to create, and B, putting focus towards it too,
Yeah.
And it's something what would you say for you? Because, people come to me and take my CIJ course for this transition, right? They're like, I don't know what I want to transition. Mm-hmm. Like, what would you say for you has been the most beneficial tool or anything that helps like, I'm transitioning and this is what I'm going to use, for that?
I would say first and foremost, you have to realize that the time is up.
Acceptance.
You have to really be like, this is not working for me. You have to pay attention to the signs of your dis-ease. A lot of times we accept things in our lives as givens. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm getting older, so therefore my digestive system's not going to work as well. Oh, I've been in a relationship this long, so it's natural for it to just plateau and die. Oh, I hate my job, but I have to earn a paycheck, and this is the one thing I know how to do. As soon as you reject pretty much everything that is given, and realize that you do have some control over your being, then other thoughts start to come into your life, and your vision of what's happening around you becomes different. And once you see things differently, then you might see the same thing that was there going, hey, lady, hey, mister, perhaps you want to look over here or do this or whatever. So I think that that's really the main component, is just be aware of what's not working for you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be as dramatic as, like life or death kind of thing, but it could be just that niggling little, I don't want to go to work today again.
Yeah.
I don't want to go home, and it's like when you start avoiding things, or you just kind of like, you start showing up late, or you're just making excuses, or whatever it is that brings your attention to that, that's the time. And then the next step would be literally to just be like, well, what do I like? Mm-hmm. What do I like doing? Yeah. What do I like being around? And just be open to it, because I thought I didn't want to be around kids. I'm like, I don't know anything about those creatures, what, and then it was like, well, why don't you, somebody at my church, they needed help, like we have this after school program, the kids are just running wild, and I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. What are they, not just let them in the room and whatever? So I was like, well, maybe I'll just try it. Mm. And then I realized, well, these kids are pretty funny. And then, that just opened me up to a whole nother thing where I was like, wow, kids are stressed out, parents are stressed out. If I can get the kids not to be so stressed, that'll help the moms or the caregivers not to be so stressed. If I take care of them and them, then everybody's taken care of. And then it becomes more, then they're more connected. And that's what's missing from a lot of people, being connected to something. They're isolated in their own feelings. And then I guess that leads me to the third point, which is talk to other people truthfully. Yeah. Be truthful about what you're feeling, be truthful about your fears, and acknowledge that it's okay, to not live up to the expectations of whomever, even if it's of yourself, and change.
Yeah. I mean, you're speaking my language. I love them. Like, hey, man, you're preaching, girl.
To the choir. Preaching to the choir.
1,000 of all of that is such yes.
Awesome. That's good to hear, because, I could talk shit in my mind all day.
Oh, it's this, you're speaking my language. I love it. And I love that you're doing meditation for kids. I mean, I know I've been meditating, I think like 11 years now. And I go 2 days, 3 days without it. I'm a mess, to the point where my friends will look at me and be like, "You sat in a couple of days." And I'm like,
it's true. Some days I intentionally, like Sundays are usually the day that either I go to church or I do nothing. Like I'm like, okay, the temple of me is happening today. And I usually find that even when I'm not meditating, literally when I'm in a meditative state, which is just allowing me to be quiet and not have all of the extra stuff, things come to me. That's when I get Sundays are like my idea day. Either I'm inspired by something, come home, that I heard in a sermon or whatever. But usually it's like whatever happens when I'm just quiet and allow that contemplative, meditative space to exist, I'll get what I need.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will come.
Yeah, I call them divine downloads.
Right. Bam.
And like, it's funny, so many, even students I can see them rushing to try to find the answer. And I'm always like, slow down, go sit. The answer is already within you. Just chill and let it come.
Right.
So programmed to feel that we need to do something in order to change, instead of like, relax, let the answer come, and then slowly start to transition.
Right.
You speak of, you go to church spiritually. Is there a particular faith? Do you have what's your vibe on spirituality versus religion?
I think that in both cases, they're all individual, because you can go to, say, and I've been to every church on the planet. You can go to a great Catholic church where the priest is just on point and totally together. And then you can move or go someplace else and be totally wrecked by the attitudes and whatever. So I think both in spirituality and religion, you have to be careful of who you're listening to and not to get too wrapped up in the story, which is, again, like everything, like don't get too wrapped up in the dogma or the charismatic character or whatever it is, and try to use whatever the method is that you're learning from, be balanced in your observations. And if it doesn't work for you, just get up and go someplace else. Again, you're not stuck. I was a Baptist. Well, my parents were probably the least. I was always a spiritual kid. So I would be like, I didn't even belong to a church, or my parents, they didn't baptize me as a kid. They was just like, go ahead. So I'd be 1 week, and the only child I know that like begged them, oh, can I go to vacation Bible school? They'd be like, whatever, girl. I'd be like, Catholic 1 week, a Baptist the next week, a Methodist. So, and then again, I guess following my true being, studying literature and philosophy. In college, I got to, again, really study, the different trains of thought. And at the end of the day, what I have discovered and still discover is that primarily there is no difference between religion and spirituality other than the point of view, politically or, time-wise, and usually it's political. And populism, as we well know, it shifts with the tide. It shifts with how well people are doing. And so you've got to take it with a grain of salt. But, if you put Buddha next to Jesus, next to Amun-Ra, next to Confucius, or, whoever, any of these deities or these, Hinduism or Sikhism, if that's even the right, or Jainism or whatever it is, essentially it's the same. You have nature, man, and bigger than all of it. Mm-hmm. So where's your place in that world? If you can figure out where you are within that, you'll be all right.
Amen. I know I say amen, and I'm the farthest from a Christian or a Catholic person, but I will sit and listen to the TD Jakes all day. So it's like I feel so what you're saying, because I like to find the wisdom in whoever it's
right.
And I wasn't raised religious either, and I was raised in Dubai, so like it was a whole different thing. But I was so called to the prayers, like the sound of, the prayers and I was so taken by 3 times a day, people stopping, taking out their carpets from the back of their car and praying and hearing that music all over the loudspeaker. And it drew me in, and it never drew me into, it was just the mysticalness of it, and then at the same time, I loved my grandmother who would tell me stories of the Bible, so no matter what, it's like there was one moment when I finally feel like I found what I had called God. I called my grandmother. I'm like, this was after a really late night at the club. In the morning, I had found, quote,
I found religion.
I found it. I called my grandmother. Yammy, I found God. What do I do? And her answer to me was, well, that's good. Why don't you find a good Catholic church? And I remember looking on the TV and finding it was a Sunday morning. Of course, I was out at the club all night. And then I found Catholicism on the TV. And I'm watching it. I'm like, I don't think that's what I just found.
Yeah, you're like, no, not quite.
Same thing that I just experienced. So then I went off and researched everything, right? And I was just like, wow, this is all saying the same shit. It's just different remixes. Y'all are all singing the same song, different remixes.
I know. It's just like, who's in charge? Who's king, as we used to play. Like when I was on tour in Japan, we were doing who's king? It's like, well, I'm king, so I'm going to take what you said and twist it so I sound like the greater, better man. It's like, this is all ridiculous. So that's why I don't really, for many years, I questioned the whole Jesus thing. It's like, because people were just way too literal. I was like, this is just too literal. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. No mystic is that literal. Eat this apple and you literally will be saved. I'm like, I think it's a metaphor. Like, it's more about thinking about, what you're doing and being conscious. But, like I said, I've come to resolve that through thought and practice. But, just like everything else we're talking about, you have to be aware and you have to practice. You can't just be aware and not practice because that's impractical. You cannot be not aware because then you're just ignorant, and you can't just ignore things when you are aware. You've got to be engaged in your own being, like, I don't know who said this, but it's like, change will come. Either it will come to you or you will make it happen. But it's a coming. It's a coming. And it's
little nagging.
Yeah.
We ignore. And then all of a sudden, boom, if we ignore it long enough, then it's coming. Boom.
Exactly. So, I guess that's pretty much, my take on life in general. It's like, be aware, act on it. You don't have to be specific because that's just being a control freak, which usually leads to the point that you feel helpless, and you want to control things. But, be in control of yourself, and then you can figure out everything else.
I love it. You're awesome. You're speaking my language. Yeah.
We're going to have to tag team one day, be like, yes, boom, bang.
Into it. And I, lyrics are going to, I'm curious what lyrics will come as the more yoga and the more practice and the more, I'm curious about that too.
Yeah, and remember that that's a skill set like anything. I didn't become. I've looked at some of my words and even listening to old songs, and I'm like, ooh, that was bad. That was bad. But then I have to take it for what it is. I was a developing artist in an apprentice world where you have to. The only way to learn is by doing. You have, again, going back to the practice, which is why we practice. It's not like I'm getting to the end result and I will be on my deathbed. I've done it all. I want to be like my 96-year-old grandmother. Like, is this it? Like, I got more things to do. I'm not done yet, but I want to be pretty much as close as possible in feeling that, there was no stone left unturned at that point.
Love that.
That I tried to get as much in as I possibly could before the bell rang.
going. I was going to ask you, like, legacy-wise, what do you want your legacy to be?
My legacy. I guess my legacy is to bring joy to the world, in whatever way that it is, and that will change over time. But I'd like to think that my mother didn't misname me.
Oh, that is beautiful. I love it. Well, I appreciate you coming on so much. So tell us, so when is the center opening, or do we know, or how do we find out? And
well, January is the latest date that we have for Jump for Joy, the center in Palm Beach. And in the interim, I am filming classes of my little chats and things like that that I'm doing that I will have up in the next month. I am working on that currently. So while I'm doing that, my job, my money-paying thing is consulting with people in the music business to help them get through the navigating of today's world, which is pretty much like yesterday's world with new computers, as far as contracts and things like that are concerned. But it's an everyday endeavor, So really, I don't use social media that much. I do have Jump for Joy Wellness is on Facebook. And as we move forward into getting into a true space and I figure out the distribution method that I want to go into, it'll be around. But it's just like my name, Jump for JOI Wellness. So if you keep looking, it'll be out there in the world and things will start popping up and, that'll be that. But I'm leaving it open.
Leave it open.
Leave it open. But New Year, 2019, we're in 2018. 2019 will definitely be up and running. And as we start doing the renovations, I'll start posting things up so people can see our progress.
Amazing. I can't wait to see it.
Thanks, Allison. I really appreciate this time speaking with you because this is like the realest interview I think I've ever had in my life.
Purpose. There's not enough of this in our music world, and that's what I'm trying to do. Of like, y'all, let's get real. It's not about the showbiz all the time.
Yeah, really, who can live up to that hype?
Oh my God, no.
It'll kill you, I'll tell you.
I really, really enjoyed talking to you. You can come back anytime you want. We'll do something else. You've got
excellent,
so much wisdom that you've just shared, and I appreciate it so much. And I acknowledge you. And I loved you before musically, but now it's like a whole nother level. I'm like, damn, you better preach it to me, sister. Yes. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. We'll be in touch, and anytime you got my contacts.
Awesome. Bye.
All right. So.
So there you have it, my conversation with Joi Cardwell. I hope you found something inspiring. If you want to take a listen to Joi Cardwell, you can find her pretty much everywhere. As you heard, she's got over 4 million plays on Spotify, so go check her out if you have not already. If you live in South Florida, keep your eye out for that wellness center. I'll make sure that when it does launch, we'll bring her back on the show and let you guys know.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
Oh yeah!
So for those of you who follow me musically, and you've been wondering what's going on and why I've been so quiet and what I've been working on, well, it's finally time to let everyone know. The Peninsula Chicago opened a new rooftop lounge called Z-Bar, and I've taken on the role as music curator. The sound of Z-Bar is inspired by international travelers, the house music roots of Chicago, and a modern mix of electronic lounge music that is as sophisticated as the cocktails served. Personally, my favorite is the Z. From afternoons and happy hours laced with bossa nova, soul, electro swing, and disco to late-night vibes of ethnic electronica, deep and melodic house. Whether you live in Chicago or are passing through, come and enjoy the handcrafted cocktails and indulge in exotic cuisine. Featuring gorgeous views of the city, Z-Bar's sexy, sophisticated, and global vibes are carefully curated to inspire your inner nomad and steep you in luxurious electro-zen bliss. So wherever you are on your journey, make sure you pass through this immaculately crafted way station where inspired libations and unique vibrations will help you feel both right at home and a whole world away. Cheers to new chapters and rooftop magic, and I'll see you in Chicago.